When I was growing up in New York, Ernie Anastos was one of those TV anchors who was simply ubiquitous and part of the fabric of my television experience. The Hall of Fame broadcaster racked up more than 30 Emmy Awards and nominations in his long career, along with a Murrow Award. And every March 21st is now Ernie Anastos Day in New York City. Such is the scope of his legend there. Well, Anastos is coming back to TV this fall with a new show, Positively America with Ernie Anastos, which will premiere on Gray television stations in 113 markets. I'm Michael Depp, editor of TVNewsCheck, and this is Talking TV, the podcast that brings you smart conversations about the business of broadcasting. This week, a conversation with Ernie Anastos about his new show, his plans for it, and his thoughts about local TV news' future in an ever more fracturing landscape. We'll be right back with that. Talking TV is brought to you by Futuri, whose Post for TV podcasting system is specifically designed for the needs of TV broadcasters. Post for TV makes going from newscast to podcast an effortless transition. It enables broadcasters to create, publish, analyze, and monetize both broadcast on demand and original podcast series from the same platform. Post ingests and automatically edits newscast audio for optimum fidelity. Commercials are replaced with programmatic ad markers. Preset brand images, titles, and descriptions are paired with individual episodes. Post then publishes blocks or full newscasts to audio platforms immediately, or at times preset by the user to multiple on-demand platforms. Stations using Post can also opt in to Futuri's ad network, which expands revenue opportunities by offering a variety of turnkey monetization options. You can learn more about Post for TV at futurimedia.com/postfortv. Welcome, Ernie Anastos, to Talking TV.
How are you? Good to see you, Michael. It's a pleasure to be with you.
It's a real pleasure to talk to you.
It's great. It's great. And I love this home atmosphere that we have. I mean, a lot has changed with the pandemic, and television, in fact, has gone in that direction where so many of the interviews are virtual, like we're doing now, and you see them on all the channels and all the major networks. It's become a way of doing things. It's easier in many ways. It's certainly a little more protective because of the pandemic. But in another way, it makes it more flexible for people like you and myself to be able to contact guests and say, could you do an interview? And it's so much easier in terms of scheduling to do it from their home or office or somewhere else.
Absolutely. It's been an indispensable tool for broadening, I think, all of our interview horizons, the possibility of who we can talk to, and as you said, just as easily as we can now.
You bet.
Ernie, I want to ask you about the show. Positivity seems to be the name of the game with this new show. So what's it going to be about?
Well, first of all, I want to thank Gray Television. You mentioned that they do have 113 markets that they cover. They're starting me off. I hope to be in all of those markets eventually. They're doing a great job to help me, but I'm grateful for whoever will be watching me across the country and as we build our following. It's a wonderful program, in my opinion. I've been on television, Michael, as you know, 4 decades in New York, and I'm honored by that. I really am, and we'll talk about that in a little while. But I said, what can I do now at this point in my career that will really crystallize a lot of the things that I've worked for all this time? And I did Positively Ernie in New York, which was, a feature where I would go out on the street, talk to people, ask them questions. I would give some quotes and opinions on the air, positive opinions about good things. I didn't get into politics or any of that. The program is not about politics, for sure. The program is really about trying to educate people, to inform them, entertain them, and to inspire people, and in many ways to empower them. So I took a break from television for a while because of the pandemic. I had a wonderful experience going to Harvard Business School. I studied there for a year. I took many courses, got my diplomas, and I felt really good about it. And that was a great experience, talking to students all over the world. So I learned a lot about leadership and certain management skills. And I said, okay, let me apply some of these principles and what I've learned. So I came up with Positively America. And I said, okay, what we need is some balance. Okay, we need some balance. I applaud a lot of, and they're colleagues of mine, hard-working journalists every day trying to do their job. They're trying to cover the news. And it's not easy because that news, Michael, as you know, is very negative. I mean, there are a lot of terrible stories out there that people, feel every day. It's harmful to our health, harmful to our mental attitude. And I hear from a lot of people who tell me, can we have something better? Can we get some, quote, good news? And I decided that I wanted to do that. I wanted to continue my effort to champion more positive stories on the air. So this program is going to be very personal. It's a half-hour weekend show, and it's the kind of program that I feel I'm going to have a lot of fun with. There are a number of people that I have had on my shows over the years who are really professionals and experts in their field, whether it's lifestyle, health, education, travel, careers, everything that you can think about that affects your life. So I sat down, I made my list, I've got about 50 people that will be on the air with me, during the course of 26 weeks. Mm-hmm. And so we decided on topics, and I was looking for things that people could really relate to. Some cutting edge material too. Things that people would be able to say, gee, I learned something. And now I'm going to apply it to my life or to the lives of my family, my children. And the format is good because as I talk to people in a nice casual way about whatever the subject is, let's talk about health, for example, mental health. What can we do to help ourselves get through these issues, whether it's the pandemic or whether it's just personal problems that we may have to face, challenges every day. But as we do it, I want it to be a learning experience. I wish I had been a teacher. I love that field. I think teachers are wonderful. And we're going to put up on the screen, some bullet points, things that we're talking about. And at the very end of the interview, I want to make sure that the viewer has somewhere to go, the payoff, if you will. Okay, I'm going to say, okay, now we just had a great interview talking about this subject. If people want more help, where can they go? And we'll put up on the screen a website, a book to read, somewhere where they can get additional information. So I'm excited about the content. And in addition to that, I love going out on the street. I enjoy talking to people. I love that one-on-one connection. And I've done probably close to 1,000 questions on my 6 o'clock show. I go out and I ask people, what advice would you give a newborn baby? What's been the best day of your life? If you could relive your life one day, what would it be? And other good questions that I really think people can relate to. So I'm going to be doing my questions, be doing some in New York. I hope to be able to travel and do some in other cities. But I'm also going to give a quotation. I love quotations. So I'm going to put a quote on the screen, and then later I'm going to elaborate, but I'm going to make it personal. For example, the show that I'm doing now, the quote that comes to my mind, don't go where the path may lead. Go where there's no path and leave a trail. And that's what I'm trying to do. And at the end of that quote, I'm going to make it a very personal comment to my viewers. I want them to know how I feel. I was talking to somebody recently, and she said to me, Ernie, we have watched you and listened to you talk to other people and do interviews for years. Now it's time for us to hear from you. What are you thinking? What are you feeling?
So the format here, are we talking about you're entirely out in the field, or is there a studio? Are you going to be doing it from your home?
Yes, there is a studio. And in fact, I must tell you, it's a beautiful studio. It looks great. The colors are wonderful. They're bright yellows and oranges. I didn't want to get into the traditional colors that most stations use. So it's a beautiful set. It looks fabulous. And the technology is amazing, Michael. I mean, you know this. This is your beat. It's going to look great on the screen. We have a lot of Zoom effects. When I talk to my interviewees, there will be a split screen. It's going to look great. So my interviews are virtual. I'll be in the studio, but I'm going to go out on the street, ask some questions, and you'll see me involved in certain stories that I'm doing. But it is a studio show with some aspects of me being out there talking to people.
So this is basically meant to be, in a sense, a balm against all the toxicity that we're seeing out there. But do you think that's even a balm that's capable of being diffused right now, given how high tensions are running and they seem to be still moving toward the boiling point?
Michael, you're asking a very good question that many people ask. This is a difficult time, stressful time. It has been. If you look at history, this isn't the first time we've been through some really serious moments in our country and in our world. But I believe in optimism, and I believe in hope. And I believe that people feel that deep down. It's kind of inherent. It's like, I want to make things better. I want to create something that can make me happier. And I believe that we have a place. Yes, I'm going to be that voice, and I'm hoping that other people will, accept that, and maybe other stations will promote, their own positive stories. Some stations are doing that, but I'm devoting all my programs to that. I hope that it will help. I'm going to make this interactive. We're going to be asking people to send us some story ideas that they have. We're going to share their information. We're going to put it up on the screen. Because there will be other stations, of course, carrying this in syndication, I'm going to be calling on some of those stations to share some of their positive stories that they've put on their local news that we can share with the rest of the country. But I want to make it something that people will feel. Maya Angelou had a great line. People may not remember what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel. And that's very important to me. There is a sense when you come through that screen as I'm talking to you of what the other person is like, what their emotions are like. I majored in sociology in college. I had been on the air from the age of 16 years old. I had my first radio job where I grew up back in New Hampshire, built a radio station in my basement at 13. I had all these microphones and records and all that kind of stuff. And at 16, I went to the local station, and the guy said to me, "Gee, you got a good voice. You want to take an audition?" And I did. And he said, "I'm going to give you your own radio show on the weekend. It's going to be called Saturday Morning Discussion. You're going to do an interview show with all young people from high school, talk about issues, play their music, and there you are." And I have been on the air since 16 years old. So I have a passion for this. I love what I do. But I feel that over the years, I've learned so much. Walter Cronkite became a real good mentor to me. There's a wonderful videotape that he recorded for me when I was having an anniversary in New York. And he paid me such a high compliment. And coming from Walter, that really touched my heart. And Walter taught me a lot of basics. He said to me, Ernie, things that you have to remember in our career. You're a watchdog. You're not an attack dog. You're not a lap dog. You're a watchdog. You bark. You tell people what's going on. You let them respond. That's our job. Neutral. I don't voice my opinion. Never have, Michael. You've seen me on the air. People don't know, what my feelings may be political, because I'm very neutral. But I think that that's important, that people have that trust in me, that confidence in my voice, that I'm genuine and I'm trying to help them get through life, just like the rest of us.
Let me ask you, for the show's distribution footprint, are you looking to, is it exclusive to Gray Television, or are you going to be offering it up for distribution with other groups?
Well, the people at Gray are terrific. There's a gentleman there, Greg Conklin, who's been helping me and has developed the program with me in terms of, setting it up for distribution. And so he's really done a great job, and he's put me on a number of stations, and I'm grateful for that, and they're going to continue to build. He did tell me that there are some other companies that are interested in working with Gray to be able to distribute. So I think that's how it works. I've never done syndication, but I believe that's how it works. So yes, obviously the objective is to get on as many stations as possible. And that's what I'm looking to do. The more people I can reach, the better off, the program will be.
You mentioned earlier, you left WNYW in New York back in 2019 to attend Harvard Business School to study leadership and
2020,
management.
yeah.
2020, sorry. So what did you draw from that experience? What you mentioned you were there for a year. What came out of it?
Well, there are several things that I experienced. As I started to tell you in the beginning, the program was wonderful. The professors are terrific, and they really offer not only good information that they have obtained through their studies, but they also bring in experts, people who are CEOs of companies, people who are interested in sustainability, people who want to do good. And that was one of the messages that I got from the Harvard programs, that if you want to be a good leader, you have to set an example. You have to listen. You have to help others become leaders. You give them the kind of information that you think is important. You learn as you're growing, but you help other people to become leaders. I learned about the passion that I have. It strengthened my commitment. I've always wanted to be an ambassador of goodwill. And I think the Harvard program taught me a lot of that through the courses and through the information that I picked up from not only the professors, but from experts who were invited to speak to us. And believe it or not, from other students globally, people from different parts of the world, in Paris and London and Abu Dhabi, wherever it was, giving their experience, because a lot of these people obviously were not undergraduate students, they were graduate people. They had already had their education, and they were also working in whatever industry they were in. So I learned a lot from that. But I must say that during that time, I also had the opportunity to take a break that I haven't had in years. Michael, and I love this, I'm not complaining. I have been really doing something, working since I was 16 years old. I had a job when I was in college. When I got out of school, I have worked in Boston, Providence, Chicago, New York. I have been just working, and my family knows that I love what I do, and I devote my time to my family more than anything. But I learned to think a little bit more and take the time to solidify my feelings. And I think that that's what I did over that 2-year period. The Harvard program, and then time for me to just sit back and observe, to be able to really listen to what's going on out there, to listen to myself, and to strengthen my own personal commitment to what I want to do. They use the word legacy a lot. We all have that. Everyone has some legacy in life. I believe that, we all have a purpose. Some of the interviews that I've done over the years have been fabulous. And I remember talking to someone who was on my program, and I said, what is life all about anyway? What should we learn from life? She was a social scientist. And she said to me, Ernie, people think that if you achieve 3 things in life, you're going to be happy. 3 things. I said, what are they? Well, she said, people think that if they get more of something, whatever it is, more money, more power, they'll be happy. They achieve more, but they're still empty. They're still searching. So they say, well, more? No, I'll make it better. Oh, I'll just have a better house, a better car, a better wife, better house, whatever it is. I'll just make it all better, 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 better. So they make everything better. The progression, she said, they're not happy. They're still not satisfied. So they go to the 3rd thing. I said, what's that? Different. Now I will set myself apart from everybody. I will be different. Custom this and custom that. I don't want to be like everybody else. I want to be different. Now, Michael, when you think about this, I mean, you can see this. I mean, it happens with a lot of celebrities, but it happens with a lot of people who are very successful. It just happens with more, better, and different. But she said they're not happy. They're not satisfied. But there's one thing that changes your life. Wow. I said, what's that? She says, purpose. Purpose. When a person has a sense of purpose in their life, some kind of commitment, it could be anything. It could be just being a good teacher, a good parent, being good at your work, having a commitment to something that you really believe in. If you have a sense of why you're here, why were you born? You have to ask these questions. I do it all the time. I do it with a lot of young people. I've written a couple of books. The last one I did was Ernie and the Big News for young readers. And I've gone out to so many schools in New York, 400 or 500 kids in an auditorium. And we've given away 15,000 books, free books. Ernie and the Big News, dream about what you want to be and how you can change the world. And, I started thinking about all these things, and I said, this is the commitment, a sense of purpose in your life. And I've learned that over the 2 years to even strengthen and solidify what I've always believed in all my life. And now I have a chance to do it. I don't have to worry about, reporting the news every night. And that was a job.
I think we're getting a pretty good preview of I think, to this show right here. I want to ask you a little bit about your anchoring career. Yes. You spent decades at the anchor desk of every major station in the country's #1 DMA, which is the brass ring. For journalists all across the U.S. So now that you've stepped back from the daily intensity of it, how do you assess the state of local TV news? Will you still eat what they're cooking?
Michael, I will say something that's very important about local news. I have done some national programs. I have guest hosted on Good Morning America. CBS This Morning. I was on CBS on the overnight. I had a program, America's Asking. So I've had some network exposure and certainly have a lot of good friends that are in, network television. But I've spent my time in local television. And the thing that I must express is that I have seen so many dedicated people in local news. If you watch a local newscast, you're not going to find opinion. You really are not. It's just news of the day, the facts. We cover the local stories, we cover the national stories, the international stories, feature stories. But I think when you're watching a local newscast, you're getting information. I think you'll agree with me. You're getting information. So I applaud them for that. Oftentimes when you're watching network television, particularly cable, they'll give you news as a hook, and then they give you their opinion. You get a lot of commentary, which is fine. This is America, and I will always defend, the right to freedom of speech. But it's different. It's different from the local news. So I have to wave the flag for local television all across America because I think they do a great job. But I've learned a lot.
That said, do you think local news is evolving fast enough to keep up with the tastes and expectation of viewers, especially since streaming has opened up so many choices and then, now allowed viewers to time shift their consumption of news?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think a lot of stations are doing it. And Michael, you and I both know it comes down to economics. Things are expensive. And I think a lot of the local stations and some of the smaller markets that don't have the resources, they don't have money or they don't have the people to be able to do a lot of things, do their best. Some of the larger stations, let's say in the top 15, 20 markets who are owned by major corporations, they do have the opportunity to initiate, websites of their own, live streaming. And you're seeing that, particularly in New York, a lot of the stations are doing that. And they're trying to expand their reach from not just the local channel that they're on, but other ways to be able to reach people. And I think they're doing a good job at that. But it's difficult. Competition. Do I have to tell you about competition? My goodness. I mean, when I first started, right, there were really only 3 networks: ABC, CBS, and NBC. Fox was not there yet. And we didn't have anything but a 6 o'clock news for a half hour of local, 6:30 was national, and then you had an 11 o'clock show. That was it. When I first started in New York in 1978, our ratings at 11 o'clock were huge. Now, when you start looking at ratings, they've dropped. Why? Because you have so much competition. There's so many channels to watch. I mean, internet, satellite, cable, social media, everything you can imagine, what you're doing. There are so many places for people to go to. At one time, we didn't have all of that. A lot of it is good. A lot of it is great. I applaud the technology that's out there and what they're doing, but a lot of it is very confusing. There was a book written several years back. I'm trying to remember the author, and it was called Information Anxiety. And it was all about how people, and I can understand this, people are anxious about what to watch, what to see, what to hear, what to read. And trying to find a way to narrow it down to how it applies to them is difficult because you have so much. I'm going to go back for 1 minute. I did another interview. I've done so many interviews, Michael. Did an interview with someone and I asked the same kind of question, what's the problem? How come everybody's so stressed out today? And he said to me, I'm going to simplify this for you. And this was a very smart guy. He said, we have too many choices. I said, really? Yeah. He said, think about it. We have too many choices. I mean, it's great that a lot of, areas have exploded, buying a car, buying toothpaste, but people are confused and it makes us anxious. We have too much to choose from. And it's contributing to our anxiety. And fundamentally, people want, and I'm saying this respectfully, people want some simplicity in life. Simplicity. I mean, if you go somewhere with your loved ones, your family, what's the best kind of day you can have? Most people say, oh, I sat under a tree with my kids. We had a picnic. We were just, watching the water, by the river. We just talked. We played ball. We came home. We sat down. We ate. Simplicity. Whatever.
As opposed to too many choices and the fear of missing out.
It's tough. It's tough. It's very, and you know what? It's getting worse. because we're getting more. We're getting more of everything, more, better, different.
I want to ask you one more question about anchoring, Ernie, since you are among the deans of American anchors. Given viewers' political polarization and their abiding mistrust in news generally, now accepting that local news fares better in surveys of trust, it doesn't seem that the anchor's job is getting any easier. How do you think that anchors need to adapt and evolve into what viewers need them to be right now? How do they stay relevant?
Good question. Difficult question. I'm not sure of the answer. It puts a lot of anchors in a very awkward position where they have to decide. And you know the stories. There have been anchors working for some networks who have decided that they didn't believe in the ideology, the views of that particular cable network or whatever it happens to be, and they've walked away. I think it's very personal. I think if you are strong in your beliefs and you follow the philosophy of the company that you're working for, then you stay. If not, you move. You try to find a place that's more comfortable for you, that's more fitting to your personality, to your beliefs, to your feelings. I'm always very cautious about opinion. I think I started mentioning that from the very beginning. The media has changed. The media is chock full of opinion, and many people like it because they believe in that same concept, that same idea of whatever the philosophy is. And then there are other people who are annoyed by it and are trying to find the truth. That's a big question. Many people, if you look at the research and the surveys, this is my opinion necessarily, but people are worried about finding the truth. Where can I learn what really is going on? And I think that's become a challenge to a lot of anchors and a lot of broadcasters. I remember when I was a young desk assistant at CBS 2, right after college, I came to New York. I went into the Army Reserves, came to New York, and I worked at Channel 2 as a desk assistant. I was like 20 years old, 21 years old. And I remember they handed a book out, and it was for the journalists, for the anchors and for the reporters. And I remember reading that book, and it said, when you're on the air, I'm just paraphrasing, when you're on the air, you are to show no emotion, no facial expressions, no bodily gestures. The inflection in your voice must be neutral. Can you imagine that? I remember reading that. I was 21 years old, just starting in the business. And they were saying that this is what we needed. We had standards and practices, I mean, everywhere, whether it was entertainment or the news. You couldn't show certain things. You couldn't say certain things. You couldn't do certain things. There were these practices that people adhered to. How has that changed, Michael? I ask you. People now have changed, and the industry has changed, and we have to adapt to it in our own way.
And do you think that viewers still, they need an empath, they need an empathic figure anchoring the desk, someone to, in terms of their relationship with the viewers? How do you think that is changing?
Oh, that relationship, I think, is crucial. I think people need to feel confident in whoever is anchoring. He, she, I think they have to feel that there's some relationship with that person. They have to have some trust. They have to have some feeling and some sense that this person is giving them the truth. And there are so many viewers out there that are loyal to whoever it happens to be. But I think that's important. I've always appreciated the fact that people, when I see them on the street, will always say to me, if I'm going to get any kind of bad news, I want to get it from you, because I think that you're going to tell me what really is going on, and you're going to feel something. You're going to sense something. People need to feel it. Going back to what we said, they won't remember what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel. When I walk down the street and people come to me, it's a sense of companionship. We've shared social history together. We feel family, and I love that. So the anchor has a very important role to make sure that they stand up for the integrity and the trust that has been given to them. But it's their own way of doing it that makes the difference. And that comes into personality and who you are. I
think that's good advice on which to end this conversation.
Thanks, Michael. I want to thank you very much. And our good friend, Dom Sumiera and Lippin Group, they're a great company for helping me set this up with you. I appreciate that. I thank you very much. And all good things to you and to your family, Michael. Keep up the good work. We haven't said enough about you. You've got an impeccable and a sterling personality and a great reputation. I mean that. And I thank you very much for the good work that you're doing.
You're very kind, Ernie. The new show, Positively America with Ernie Anastos, will be out this fall on Gray television stations across the land and perhaps spreading with an even wider footprint. Thank you so much, Ernie.
Thank you, Michael. Take care.
Take care. Thanks to all of you for watching and listening, and see you next time. If you like our Talking TV conversations with industry leaders, the executives, producers, talent, GMs, news directors, innovators, and many others who are driving this industry forward, smash that like button, as the influencers say. Well, maybe don't smash it, but clicking it would be nice. Also, leave us a comment and tell us what you liked about our conversations, what you'd like to ask, and who you'd like to see. Remember, TVNewsCheck is your source for continuously updated news and information about the broadcast industry and the broader ecosystem around it. So subscribe to our newsletters and keep us open on your browser, because news changes fast. And we've got lots of events coming up both virtually and in person, so check out our calendar of events for more information. A new episode of Talking TV is available most Fridays on TVNewsCheck.com. You can also listen and subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and Spotify.